Part of another week. Hello there, good afternoon and welcome to The Pulse. We're coming to you live from our studios here in Accra. We're also live on your digital terrestrial TV because we are free to air. You can catch us live on DSTV channel 421, Go TV channel 144. We are Joy News, independent, fearless and credible journalism. And coming up this afternoon on The Pulse, angry artisans at Suame magazine pelt sachet waters as Member of Parliament for the area. I'll say Mensa Bonsu's entourage to register their displeasure over delays in fixing deplorable roads in the area. We are live in the Ashanti region for the latest this afternoon. Also this afternoon, Tertiary Students Confederacy of the New Patriotic Party suspends all activities on campus in protest of what they describe as the party's failure to recognize them as its intellectual wing. We'll engage leadership of the group here on The Pulse, plus bring you reactions from the fallouts of the National Delegates Conference of the New Patriotic Party. And Ghana Health Service as well is intensifying contact tracing as the nation monitors 98 people who have been in contact with 2 persons who died from the highly infectious Marburg virus. More as the health officials are on high alert to prevent the spread of monkeypox, which the case count has already hit 19. It's all coming up here on The Pulse. I am Blessed Sogah. The Pulse, as always, is brought to you by Global Communities Dignity, Low Affordable Safe Sanitation. Remember this afternoon that we're streaming live on YouTube and all of our social media handles is at JoyNews on TV. Twitter us with the hashtag The Pulse. Always a pleasure serving you here on The Pulse. Please stay. And we start off from the Ashanti region this afternoon. There, the artisans at Suame magazine in Kumasi have been reacting angrily to the visit of the Member of Parliament for the area, Mensa Bonsu. Now, the artisans threw sachet water at the Member of Parliament entourage to register their displeasure at the delays in fixing deplorable roads in the area. They say that the failure of government to fix bad roads in the area is not only hampering businesses in the hub, but also threatening their lives. My colleague Ohim Interior is on the ground and joins us for more on this. We'll get to him shortly, but first let's bring back this report filed by Emmanuel Bright-Kweku, where the artisans stormed the streets to register their displeasure about the state of their roads.
Throughout Thursday, some of the artisans and spare parts dealers here at Suame magazine had to abandon their job. For what reason? To protest against the poor nature of roads within the enclave. The main Suame to Macro Road have for months been nailed, ready for upgrade, but unfortunately the project has stalled. Now, the artisans say this has affected their work.
For 5 months, we have had to contend with dust. We do not make enough when we come to work, and now our health is threatened due to dust. We haven't seen the factories and dams promised by the government. See what they are now doing to us. The majority leader, who is our MP, only comes around to campaign, sharing money to drunkards for their votes. When election is due, our MP will organize football competition, offering 3,000 CDs to the winner. He neglects all developmental projects at the election. The MPP government keeps deceiving us. For 4 months, our wells are locked up. We can't display them due to the dust.
No police in free station, but now
Their actions today affect flow of traffic. It took police intervention to ensure that the roadblocks are removed for free flow of traffic. Leadership of the artisans and spare parts dealers here at the Suame magazine have been pleading with their members to halt the protest. Mr. Anthony Opon is one of them.
And if ordered some from outside, it's on the way coming, so we should wait for it. But unfortunately, since then there has not been further communication to us as to what has led to this stalemate. So yesterday, we the leaders took the opportunity to go to the Urban Roads headquarters at the regional office.
Well, so there's more on this. Let's speak to my colleague Ohimin Chevia, who's been monitoring the events for us. Ohimin, bring us up to speed with what's happening right now in the constituency.
Thank you, my brother. It was a normal visit in reaction to just a few days ago when the residents and artisans of our magazine staged a demonstration demanding that government fix their roads. Indeed, they say the roads are in deplorable state, especially the Suame roundabout, not Belfo stretch. Part of it has been awarded to a contractor, the shop construction. The contractor has moved site, and unfortunately, a part of the surface of the road has been removed, and making it dusty for the artisans and then spare parts dealers. They say many a time when they bring their products and display them for sale, they end up dusting the product. It makes it difficult for buyers or potential buyers to even attract it to those products. So today, the Member of Parliament, who we are told has been in part of the service by representing the people of Suame, led by the municipal representatives for Suame, and other officials from the assembly, paid a visit to the area, for instance, in the first place, to assess how construction work has been going, and also meet the leadership of the artisans and the spare parts dealers. But unfortunately, they were met by this vocal crowd as they moved towards the venue of the meeting, and the crowd, mainly artisans, started, throwing sachet water on the entourage. And I could see on several occasions members of the entourage being faced by these chilled sachet water in the process. But nonetheless, Mr. Oseche Mensah and his entourage managed to enter the auditorium where they engaged the artisans and the spare parts dealers. And whilst the process, the dispute was ongoing, the Ashanti Regional Police Commander, COP Afobwaki Yadom, and also the Suame District and Divisional Command officials were also there to lend a hand.
Are we getting any reaction so far? Either from the MP or the security or officials on this?
Yes, the MP has been reacting, but first let's listen to some of the people or the artisans. They are concerned why they did what they did today.
So beyond that as well, I'm sure that the Member of Parliament, as you were indicating, has also raised some issues with what's happening in the constituency. Even before we listen to the artisans, what do you have to say about the MP's push after the engagements today?
My traffic light, and yeah, you might chronom traffic. You wouldn't be that. You would be MP no Amaye. Yes, no. Every so now some Junior Emila. I don't think I any Abrena. Yanuano, Mercury, traffic light, chronom traffic. Yahu cheers, it's a matter of for this is CI or 1 year so. One for you could see chronom. Mama Fia was here, Franco. I would have you who I can't so. Yes, sir. So, if you say, I saw to us the idea on your yes, idea.
Guy for Elamasi, the man is someone's from a passy and Mediana Menyampo magazine, you will be a Fleming magazine comfort. Yaw Amenyampo, Mediano, magazine, I will be a magazine comfort. I better chairman Sabunsuasi. So I buy now on your Babacasa because I have an obey and a wolf, Gene, Kenso, and you saw the other blue.
So, Ohiming, what more did the Member of Parliament say?
Hotel Chairman Sabunsu spoke to a journalist who were around, and when I asked him for his reaction, he explained that he is not perturbed by the events today. All that he is aware is that he came around to explain to them the efforts that he, as a member of parliament representing the area, has put in to ensure that the bad roads, especially the main Suame roundabout Melco Junction Road, is put in good shape. Detailing how he met the contractor and then officials of the urban roads trying to fix the situation. And so he said, yes, the people, at a point, he agreed with them because he, as a representative and also a member of government, a government official, the anger is not towards him, but because he's a government official, that is why the people were agitated and very, let me say, use the word rude against him. So we can take a listen to him.
Last week here at Suame magazine, there was a major demonstration. It had to do with the refurbishment of and reconstruction of the main highway that is from Suame roundabout through Marco to Efrancho. The road had developed several potholes and it was causing some accidents. And because of that, the Minister for Roads and Highways awarded a contract to a contractor to refurbish and indeed reconstruct the road. The contractor started work. Unfortunately, midway, he experienced acute shortage of bitumen, and having waited for about 2 weeks, he had to undertake to go to La Côte d'Ivoire to procure bitumen in order to be able to complete the works that he has started. In the meantime, there was massive dust on the road, which is a very busy road, and the artisans were complaining that dust are taken over. Of course, they deal in spare parts, they are mechanics, they deal in spare parts, and with the dust, when the dust settles on the parts, it makes them appear as old parts, and so they are not able to sell at the prices that they have determined to sell. Apart from that, inhaling the dust was also causing sicknesses amongst them, and that is what occasioned the demonstration. Unfortunately, we've spoken to the contractor who has, as I said, been able to procure the bitumen, and within the next couple of days is coming to complete what he has started. That is the reshaping of the road and the application of another overlay of asphalt. So in the next 3 days, the hope is that we'll begin applying the asphalt, and hopefully, let's say the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you should be able to finish with it. And with that, will bring considerable relief to the users of the road. But the reason why we are here, to assure the artisans that this is what is about happening, and also to appeal to them that in the very near future, government is going to begin the construction of the interchange at Suame. It is also going to cause some dust, and if it's difficult for them to tolerate this, it will also be very difficult for them to tolerate the other one, the major construction. So you need to come and speak to them to be on the lookout for this, so that when the time comes for the construction of the interchange to begin, people will not develop apprehension for the dust that may come up, because it's a necessary part of road construction. So it is the two reasons why I decided to come and talk to my countrymen and women, the workers at Suame magazine.
Their concerns are unhappy with government's
I've explained why. Yes, I'm the face of government. So if they are really angry that it's been a while since the scraping of the surface and dust is killing them, certainly when they see any government official, they will vent their spleen on the person. So I'm not worried. I need to explain to them. Maybe when the difficulty happened, we should have had an avenue to have engaged them earlier. If we had engaged them earlier, I believe this wouldn't have happened. So I thank you very much.
Also, that's the majority leader, Osei Mensa Bonsu, there. We'll still keep our eyes on happenings within the constituency and bring you some updates in our subsequent bulletins. You're still with us here on The Pulse. Let's talk about some more issues. The Tertiary Students' Confederacy of the New Patriotic Party has suspended all their activities in protest of what they describe as a failure of the party to recognize them as the intellectual wing of the New Patriotic Party. Now, this follows an injunction that banned voting during of these delegates during the conference. Now, the group has also suspended all TESCON activities, which include general meetings, programs, elections, and also handing over until they see documents of the said injunction. Now, on your screens now is a copy of a statement released by the TESCON wing, and we could just bring you excerpts indicating the petition to addressing the disrespect, undermining and devaluation of TESCON, as the group is indicating. Now, they point to, first of all, Article 1012G of the New Patriotic Party's constitution, which makes one representative from every recognized TESCON institution a delegate at the annual delegates conference of the New Patriotic Party. But it appears, as the petition is indicating, that the party deliberately didn't recognize the group as part of the conference. Then they go on to say that allocation of stands were made for all delegates with the exception of the TESCON at Accra Sports Stadium, which clearly indicates that the party did not factor us and never value us in the planning of the whole event. The statement continues to indicate that were lodged at Anakazo in the eastern region without allocation of rooms to our TESCON delegates from the Greater Accra region. They slept outside and others in their cars until the next morning for us to come to the stadium and to be told an injunction has been placed on the TESCON, and for that matter will not be allowed to vote. Now, delegates from the Ashanti region were giving 45 accreditations instead of 174 accreditations for the president, Nasara coordinators, and also the women commissioners, which is 58 each. And with the Greater Accra, 23 accreditations were giving instead of 144, and this is similar to all other regions, as the statement is indicating from TESCON. They conclude by saying that we, the 291 TESCON presidents in Ghana, have concluded to suspend all activities of TESCON on our various campuses till further notice, which includes general meetings, programs, elections, handing overs, and more. Then until we see the said injunction, the one who placed the injunction and the reason for which the injunction has been given, and also given the ambiguity until we are giving a positive assurance to settle as soon as possible the ambiguity on TESCON representations during regional and national conferences in the next annual National Delegates Conference. Otherwise, we'll advise ourselves accordingly. So these are some of the demands coming through from TESCON, indicating their concerns on this matter. Emmanuel Dako is president of TESCON Accra Technical University. He joins us via Zoom now. Lily Nanajwa Hamilton is president of TESCON University of Ghana City Campus, and Collins Nana Bedon is president for TESCON K and UST. Thank you all for joining us. So let's you hear your accounts and concerns on this latest development. Let me start off with you, Emmanuel.
Thank you very much. Well, the issue of we attending our activities on campus is based on how we were treated at the just ended annual delegate conference. As we indicated in the letter, clearly, when it goes on to the stadium, it clearly showed that no preparation was made for TESCON because we never had our stand at the stadium, unlike the other regions. That's what I had, yes. MMDC, MPs had their stand, but TESCON never had any stand. And even after we've been told that an injunction has been placed on TESCON, we never had anyone to come and talk to us. We were just told an injunction has been placed on you, and that's it. Our colleagues from the Upper East left the same day back to Upper East, with not even with transportation. And we think it's bad treating TESCON this way. MPP is believed to be the intellectual wing of the new patriotic party. And I don't think treating its intellectual base this way is the good way. So.
Let me bring you in, Lily. What's also your account on this? Well, we'll come back to Lily shortly, but for you, Collins, what do you also have to say about your experience? Were you also one of the delegates that was not allocated a room to sleep in?
For Ashanti region, we were fortunate to have a room. I think they gave us 3 rooms for the presidents, the Nasara, and then the Wukom, until the Wukoms were asked to come to a particular hotel in Accra. So for us, we were fortunate to have a room. We didn't experience that. But the only thing we experienced was that instead of giving us 174 accreditations, we were given only 45. Meaning, if the presidents are the only ones to enter, only 45 of them would have gotten the chance to enter. So we needed to find ways all of them could get the chance to enter. And that was very bad. That was very bad. Looking at the way we spent the whole night from the Friday evening to the next Saturday and meeting aspirants only to come to the stadium in the morning to be told that you cannot vote and somebody has placed an injunction on your election or on your list. Meanwhile, they didn't tell us, the one who placed the injunction on us, the reason for the injunction. And when that injunction was even secured, which was very unfortunate. And most of the TESCON presidents in Ashanti region are disgruntled. In fact, including the members of TESCON. And this is one of the ways NDC gets the opportunity to poach our members. They've already started. And this morning I've realized that some of our members are even leaving the pages. And we need to, take an immediate action as soon as possible so that we can address these issues once and for all.
But for you, Lily, as well, for those on the UGCT campus, what was the story like? We'll try and rectify the connections to Lily. But Collins, so this latest decision that we're seeing from TESCON, is this a collective position, the fact that you would want to boycott almost all party activities?
Yes. All the TESCON presidents came together to come to this point that we needed to suspend all activities of TESCON on our various campuses so that our leaders can attend to the concerns of TESCON. In fact, last 4 years it happened. This year too it has happened. If you don't take care, it will happen in the next 4 years, and it needs to be addressed once and for all. You have a TESCON president who is the official mouthpiece of the association. So if there should be a representation at a program organized by the national party, the TESCON president is obviously the leader of the delegation. Yet they didn't state that in the constitution, which some people have used that as an excuse to select people to represent the association. Sometimes some of the delegates are even selected without the consent of the executives of the association, which is very bad. Fortunately for us, I think in June, yes, we received a communique from the national party. Concerning the regulations for this year's election, and it was spelled out clearly that the president or the president's rep was supposed to represent the association from the various branches. Only for some people to, select different people other than what the National Council approved. So some regions sent their petition, including Ashanti region, when we realized that when the album that we use for the regional elections is being the same one that has been sent to the national level. We petitioned the elections committee and it was addressed. I think Greater Accra, to my brother from Accra Technical University, was even affected. Manuel, he was affected, and they also wrote a petition to the elections committee, and the issues were also resolved. So we knew that when we were coming, everything was going to be okay. Only to get to the stadium on Saturday that somebody has placed an injunction on it. And in fact, it has affected the spirit of TESCON across the nation. And this morning, I've been receiving calls from my fellow presidents from Upper East, Upper West, Northern region. And some even are trying to say that if they don't hear anything, they will resign from their positions, which is serious. And I think the party and then the national youth organizer should address this issue as soon as possible. All that we need is that one.
Let's hear from Emmanuel as well. Emmanuel, your take as we...
We also want to know...
it appears we're having some challenges with Collins, but let me bring you Emmanuel as well. Your appeal to the party, finally.
Yeah, first and foremost, we want the law that governs TESCON and the party at large to be straight. You want to go to the TESCON, the national constitution, it says that the delegate for the annual delegate conference, when it comes to TESCON, it says that one representative from every TESCON institution. I think you should say that categorically that it should be the TESCON president, because the duties of a TESCON president, one is the chief spokesperson of the institution that he or she spearheads. So how can I be the chief spokesperson in the institution that I spearhead, and then representative for events, any rep can be chosen? When it comes to the TESCON constitution to at the general clause 1, it states that the representative for events and the election shall be determined by the national youth wing in consultation with the regional youth wing. So this gives an open ceiling whereby any regional youth organizer or a national youth organizer can pick a member or any executive member to be the rep of the TESCON institution.
Right.
Whereas there is the president available. So I think that our laws need to be tracing that if there should be a rep, it should be indicated that it should be the TESCON president. Yes, I think that will help. That will go a long way to help us, not even us, because most of us will be done with school very soon. We are doing this for the people who come after us. We think that this thing has been in the system for a very long time, and I think it's a time that we need to rise up and make sure that this thing ends as soon as possible. Okay,
then. I'm grateful, Emmanuel, for your time as well. There's a lot happening with regard to this reorganization process of the NPP. In fact, President Akufo-Addo has called on members of the New Patriotic Party to rally behind the party's newly elected executives. He believes that this will help the party in the upcoming general election. In a Facebook post on Sunday, he stated that the unity of the party is essential to its success. Therefore, all members must build a unified front in order to retain power in 2024. So let's bring you a breakdown of that statement, portions of it indicating that I congratulate warmly the new national chairman of the New Patriotic Party, Mr. Stephen Ayensu team, and the other national officers who were elected at the party's national delegates conference held at Accra Sports Stadium on Saturday, 16th of July, 2022. Once again, we in the NPP have demonstrated that we are a party that is committed to the tenets of multi-party democracy. So aspects of what it is that the president has been talking about. Meanwhile, the chairperson of the New Patriotic Party, Stephen Ayensu team, has been indicating very clearly that he will cherish the chairmanship position.
And God bless you in your future endeavors. The elephant is our symbol. Please be upstanding. Over 6,000 of them draped in NPP colors and party paraphernalia filled a section of the Accra Sports Stadium. The conference, which was scheduled to start in the morning, started some minutes after 2 p.m. with minority political parties and the main opposition party, the NDC, delivering their fraternal messages. Leader of the NDC delegation and Deputy General Secretary Peter Boama Otokuno did not mince words. It was a no-holds-barred speech laced with innuendos and criticism from introduction to conclusion.
I take particular notice of the levels of ostentation on display and regret deeply, rather deeply, that the MPP do not exhibit any modicum of the ability to appreciate the need to be sensitive to the people of Ghana in these times of great suffering and pain. The new patriotic party remains the luckiest political organization in Ghana, yet have only offered poor leadership, incompetent leadership, leading to the current economic meltdown and hardship for all Ghanaians. When we were coming, I decided to buy a ball of kenke. This ball of kenke sells for 5 cedis. The leaves on the kenke alone will be 3 cedi, more expensive than the kenke itself. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Guess what, ladies and gentlemen? I bought the kenke with my Ghana card.
President Kwadwo in a speech said Ghana will negotiate a good deal with the IMF, one that will help build a stronger economy. We came to office under an IMF program, a derailed IMF program, which we inherited from the Mahama administration. We worked hard to exit the country from the program, and we were in the process of building a strong economy until the events of COVID and its consequences. I want to assure you and assure the people of Ghana that we're going to negotiate a good deal with the IMF, a deal that would allow us to revive our economy and to continue the task of building an even stronger economy than we had before. For those urging the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta to resign over the prevailing harsh economic conditions and the decision to go to the IMF, that may not happen, as he says it is like a father neglecting his child in times of difficulty.
You know, it's almost like telling a father to resign from his children because he's changed his mind. You know, there are times that decisions have to be made for the survival of a country, and therefore if circumstances such as COVID or Ukraine war occur, which are not typical, it does change the environment, and sensible people will change their minds.
Well, and more reactions have been flowing following the National Delegates Conference of the New Patriotic Party. Earlier today, I caught up with former Chief of Staff Kwadwo Mpiani, who has been speaking about the party's reorganization process so far. He's also been touching on calls on the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, to resign. Honorable Kwadwo Mpiani, thank you for talking to Joy News. We're just coming from that fiercely contested exercise, the National Delegates Conference of the New Patriotic Party. I'm sure that even if you were not at the venue, you have monitored what has transpired. What's your impression about, first of all, the reorganization process of the New Patriotic Party?
Reorganization of the New Patriotic, I think this was a normal elections. I was there anyway.
Okay.
It was a normal 4-yearly elections where you elect the party, national party officers. So this is what we did last Saturday. If there's to be any reorganization, I believe it's left to the newly inducted officers to look at that. So for what we did last Saturday was purely for the election of national officers for the party.
Some would say that given this high level of contest that we've seen, there may be some faults within your ranks. Obviously, there are some who are seeking to take up the national executive position. Some didn't make it, and so there'll be a need for some sort of reconciliation to take place within the NPP before you face that common threats of the NDC going into the 2024 elections. What's your take on reconciliation within the new patriotic
That one
party?
is very important. At the end of every election, I think it's incumbent on the victors, if I use advisedly, that is, those who were elected in those offices, to talk to the losers, bring them in. After all, it's for the party. And in an election, you're always going to have losers, winners, and losers. But if you want a good administration, if you want cohesion in the party, the leadership, those who were elected, it should be their duty to try to bring everybody on board. Initially, people will not be naturally disappointed, might have lost some monies here and there, and therefore egos bruised or something like that. So after some time, not too long a time, short time, 3-4 days, the victors, especially the chairman and the general secretary, should take it upon themselves to bring everybody on board.
There's this belief that we've never seen such a contest before. You've been around since the inception of the NPP. Would you say that this year's or this time around, what do you believe may be accounting for all of this?
Yeah, it was very keen. We've seen very keen elections before. I've been involved in some of them. This one was very keen. Right. There's no doubt about that. I think it was believed by some that the authority was backing some individuals. I have no proof of that. Right. But that was the belief of some people. And they believe that it should not be the responsibility of those in authority to do that. And therefore they wanted to show their independence and prove to everybody the people they like to be elected to stay to
state affairs of the party.
Yeah.
And some say that resulted in some big casualties that we recorded on the night. For instance, the incumbent General Secretary, John Boydu, has lost his post. Yeah. He, going into the elections, made the claim that he's the most experienced, by far, party executive, competent enough to lead the party into the 2024 elections. It appears that by voting him out of office, the NPP could suffer a defeat in 2024.
No, the people didn't believe in what he said. Naturally, if I'm contesting for election, I want to use what I believe are my strong points to convince the people to vote for me. But he tried, and the people didn't believe in that. After all, when he became a general secretary, he had never been a general secretary before. But he was able to work for about 6 years or so. So the people looking at what is happening within the party believe that his argument was not the best, and therefore they decided to vote him out.
You don't think he was the most experienced to take up that job, going into that tough contest?
Experience in what sense? Experience in what sense? The general secretary, yes, you need to have an efficient general secretary. A general secretary who should be able to bring
everyone
all sides of the on board. Right. And those who contested him, I believe almost all of them have been in the party for some time. They have held positions within the party, youth organizer, MP, and whatnot. And therefore, I believe they also have the experience. You should prove your experience to the people. I mean, if you say that you have, let's be blunt here and say, if you tell me that you have an experience, being general secretary and going to elections and won elections, maybe the first question I will ask, yes, in 2016, elections, you had 169 MPs. You brought down to 137. You can't convince me that you have done well on that basis, you know. So if you want to talk of experience and being there, you must then prove it with
were the facts. But he says that if you look at the trend around the world, COVID had hit a lot of economies. Incumbent parties were not doing so well across the world, and that partly could have been the case of the NPP. Hence the reduction in
the election was
2016,
wasn't it?
In the numbers. Yeah.
The election was 2016. When was the COVID?
Afterwards, anyway. But
So
you agree that things were not moving so well at that period for the NPP.
I'm sorry I have to sort of go into that. I'll just use it as an example, you know, that if you come in to convince me that you've done so well, you won one election, you won a second election, and I ask you, yes, you won the first election convincingly, but the second one, I am not so much convinced. So that argument
would not stand. But let's look at the new General Secretary you have. We'll look at a few other positions, key ones of course, but for the General Secretary position, the belief is that that's the only paid official of the party, as we understand, which means that that role is crucial. You have JFK, Justin Kwadwo Mpiani, who's coming in, quite a young man, many say, 40 years of age, and the belief is he may not be able to deliver. Do you believe in him and his ability to deliver?
You know the age when Dambojo became the General Secretary of the party?
Not at all, sir.
It was about the same age. It was even a more critical and more difficult time in 2000 elections. I mean, I don't know how old we were at that time. With Rollins there and then the NDC, it was even more difficult trying to get them out of power. But he helped in getting that government out of power. This young man, yes, he's young, but fortunately for him, he's been in the party organization for some time. I understand he was a Ashanti regional youth organizer for quite a time. So at least he knows party organization. And also he's been put in charge of youth employment agency or something.
YEA,
the whole country, trying to get employment for the youth. I think that's good experience.
You
and don't forget also that the about 60% of the electorate is 40 years or below. So I think he's the sort of person who can communicate with them.
You feel he will bridge the gap between the old and the new generation?
I believe so.
But beyond JFK, there's also Mr. Stephen Ntim, who has finally been declared as chairperson of the party. Looking back at, I'm sure you've worked with him, looking back over the years, what do you have to say finally now that he has the opportunity to serve as chairperson of the NPP?
Well, you know, he's been, as you rightly said, he's been with the party as a first vice chairman for about 4 years. He contested, he didn't win, but he wasn't the sort of person who said, I haven't won, therefore I'm withdrawing. You know, still very much involved in the party. Contested 4 times, I think, before this one. And any time after the elections, he involved himself deeply in the affairs of the party. And if you look at the results now, the party or the electorate believes that at this stage he's the right person for the job.
It's been, he says, more than close to 20 years. I mean, just targeting that position.
It was 4 years, 4 years intervals, and this is his 5th time running. So he's right about that.
You think it was hard work that gave him this position?
I believe so.
Not luck?
I believe so. And maybe people also got to believe or accept what he told them. Maybe the previous elections, he was telling them things maybe they didn't believe or they didn't think he could do. But after the elections, he went around, he's lost, but got himself so much involved in the party, traveled all over the country. So they saw in him something which they believe will help the party in future.
In fact, there are 9 others, in all 10 national executives. When you look at this new crop of leadership for the new patriotic party, and let me just digress a bit. Somewhere last week we heard former President Kufuor, your boss, talking about how the NPP has changed and evolved over the years. When you look at this new crop of leadership, are you getting a sense that the party is back to where it belongs?
I can't say that immediately, but I believe the party will come back to where it should be. We'll have to see how they're going to operate. And I had the opportunity of talking to some of them, and listening to them. the ideas of bringing the party together, I believe they can do that. If my discussions with them is anything to go by, then I believe they can do that.
Beyond this, some of the candidates are beginning to raise concerns. Some may call them sore losers, but there are genuine problems, for instance, that some of the contenders have raised. Let's talk about Stephen Asamoah Boateng, for instance. He talks about vote buying, which is creeping into the party. He believes that it's a trend, if not checked, could affect the quality of leadership that the NPP has. What do you have to say about this trend? Well, I've not seen any physically, but this trend of allegations of vote buying within
Did he also pay anything? Did he also pay anything?
He confessed to paying something to delegates.
So why complain? if you have paid, if you say I didn't pay anything, that's a different matter. But if you paid, somebody else paid, they look at you and said, we prefer this one. There's a problem. I know there's a problem of monetizing elections. I know that's a problem. But for a losing candidate who agrees that he paid something,
he shouldn't have paid?
No. If you haven't paid, then you have every right to go and complain about it. If you have done it and you believe, he didn't even show whether people also paid, but he believes people also did that. Then what
he says people were going behind him, paying delegates, seeing them and trying to frustrate them.
And he said he also paid.
At least he wasn't clear if it was for the votes, but he put some cost.
Why do you pay? I'm not saying it. He raised some very fundamental issues,
But how do we deal with that?
Which I think as a party we should look at. Not only our party, but generality of political parties in the country. And I believe we should look at it critically and find a way to resolve that.
What do you think would be that appropriate solution to such?
Well, for example, instantly I can think of, say, why don't you expand the electoral base? I mean, if, for example, in a constituency, every card-bearing member is to go and vote, and we have about, say, 5,000 members of the party in a constituency. How are you going to pay money to 5,000 people? So, out of this
it will be difficult to bribe a larger.
How are you going to bribe 5,000? Even if you decide to give everybody 100 seats, that's 500,000.
It's not sustainable that way.
It's not sustainable. And I believe this is one way maybe we'll do it, but I think we should sit down and look at it critically and find a solution to it. Otherwise, this country. So for us, we use political parties to do that. We don't take excuse me to use the word, the crooks in the country. In future, is going to take charge of the country. Drug dealers and whatnot. People because they have the money. They will have the money. So yes, it's a problem we should look at. And if you look at it critically across all parties, when I was in my constituencies when they were doing the polling station at that level, and some people came to me and they wanted money to go and see the people. I sat them down and said, "What are you talking about? What are you going to get by being a polling station agent? You are serving your party and you want to get something, go and get to people for them to elect you. What are you going to get? Are you going to be paid anything?" So you see the mentality. And therefore, if you look at it, it's very important. It's extremely important. And I think if we're able to sort of curtail it, it will go a long way in even addressing the corruption within the system.
Some are also worried that this trend may creep into the next phase of reorganization for the NPP, which is the ultimate, finding the flag bearer for the New Patriotic Party. The belief is, if you don't check some of the claims Asabi and others are raising, you could have this same scenario play out when it comes to the time to choose the flag bearer for the NPP. Are you worried that this could also creep in?
Well, I'm worried about the payment of the money, but I'm not too much worried in the sense that NPP, you have a lot of discerning people there, and they always choose the right person. I'm not in any way discounting the influence of money in this. It's there. Right. But from 1992, I was deeply involved with President Kufuor's campaign, and I always tell people that if we were money alone, Kufuor wouldn't have been a president.
Really?
Oh yes, couldn't have been a president. There were people who were more resourceful than him. There were people, not only them being resourceful, but people also helping them with resources. He didn't have that. But he went to the people and people realized that this is the man we should vote for. So money is important in politics. There's no doubt about that. But I don't believe it is everything. The personality also involved. And I believe my party that at the end of it, they will choose the right person.
Since we're at it, I guess this is the time to expand that conversation, finding the next phase for the New Patriotic Party as the flag bearer. Do you have any preferred persons in mind who you'd want to see become president?
I'll have a preferred person, but if you ask me who that person, I'm not going to tell you.
You should tell me anyway.
But naturally, like you see, I tell people like these new officers in the party. When I had the opportunity of talking to some of them, I always tell them, look, the electoral commissioner votes, doesn't he? Or she
does.
She votes. But if the electoral commissioner were to say that I like this person, what would be the effect?
But the point is, you've been in the party for quite some time now to know some of the names.
No, that's maybe at the right time or at the right time. Me, I'm not an officer. I'm not. Maybe at the right time, I'll come on and appeal to people that vote for Mr. A or Madam B, because I believe, from my experience, he will be the best person, not only for the party but for the country.
A description of how the person looks like.
Oh, description! I'll give you his photograph later.
A gentle giant again?
Oh, I don't know.
Anyway, but give us a history to this. Probably you may not want to put out the name out there for very good reasons, but the history behind choosing the flag bearer for the NPP. We've heard the argument from some political watchers that the NPP deals with a certain sort of there's I don't want to call it a lineage, but there's a trend of people that you choose and you take them in turns. We've heard some say, well, that should be discarded and that we should go in for a completely new phase for the party. Some have also made the Dankwa Bozia Dombo argument. I'm sure you've heard all of these things, but having been around from the start of this party, what do you have to say about the line of succession and how the NPP goes about choosing?
I believe it should be left to the party to decide. I sincerely believe it should be left to the party.
Is there any convention, something you followed over the years?
Well, we have conventions. I don't know. I doubt it. But I think the party, in its wisdom, always look at somebody who's been faithful to the party, who's been with them in the trenches up to this time. It's not a convention, it's not part of the rules, but the party in its own wisdom, members in their own wisdom, believe that we have known such a person for all these years, has been with us, we've studied him, and we know what he can do, and so let's give him the power to go and contest on our behalf. And I believe the party will do that.
So is that the idea you subscribe to as a way of finding the next leader?
As a party man, yes. Right. I believe you can't just go and plug anybody from anywhere and make that person a candidate. Occasionally, in other societies, it happens. Even here, it may happen. For example, I remember in 2000 or 2000, people were floating the idea, why don't we go and bring Kofi Annan as a candidate, because they look at his
style,
where he's been and whatnot, and they thought that would be an advantage to the country. But there were some people who were vehemently opposed to that. Everybody has the right to believe in what he wants to believe. So I believe, I think we should look at the people concerned, the contribution to the party. We know them, we interact with them, so we know what they can do and what they can't do. And based on that, we must decide who is the right person, the candidate.
Do you agree when the argument is thrown about that the Dombo tradition has not been favored within the NPP?
Whose tradition? Do you have a Dombo tradition or Dankwa tradition or Buzia tradition? And if you're going to follow that one, okay, who represents Dombo tradition? Or who represents Dankwa tradition? Is it where he comes from? Or those who believe in Dankwa's ideas? You know, so I don't.
People should not be claiming these.
So if you are going on that basis, okay, right. say Dombo is from the north, so somebody should come from the north,
for instance.
Dankwa is from the east, so somebody will come from the east. Buzia is from Bron. So what about other regions? What about the Gans? What about the Nzimas? What about the Voltarians? Are they also not part of the party? It doesn't work that way. And maybe if you look at it, some of them might have worked, the ancestors might have worked maybe harder than some of the names we have mentioned. We call it a tradition because we believe in the ideals and the ideas and whatnot. That does not mean that you should say that let's follow something like that. But who represents what? I hear people saying that Mr. Kufo represents Buzia. I say, on what basis?
Right. It's not entirely true?
On what basis? They are not from the same area. Because people are saying that Dombo is from the north, so somebody should come from the north. Buzia was from Bronhafo, or Bron to be specific.
Right.
So how could Kufo be representing Buzia? In a way, we may say that maybe the current president
from the
Dankwa,
right.
For me, family and everything.
Right.
But even that's not right. I don't think that's the way.
So people should not be
at all.
At the party
at all. I mean, if you do that, I think it may lead to the strengthening of the party.
There may be division if that happens.
Of course. If you take the north, I have some people from the north, very good friends, who come to me and say, even the north is not
homogeneous.
Right. So if you say Dombo was from Upper West. So should it come from Upper West, or from Savannah, or from North, or from Northeast?
Right.
It doesn't work that way.
Anyway, let's talk about breaking the 8. If the NPP is to break the 8, partly your successes will owe to the performance of the party in power, which is the government. What's your assessment of President Akufo-Addo's tenure as president?
You see, we have not been lucky in this second term. We know what happened, the COVID, excuse me, is one of them. There you may be able to influence it. It's here. So what do you do to contain it? So as a government, you like coming out with pay people even if they are not working, help people with their utility bills and whatnot. It's on you, but you have a means of influencing it. If you take, say, the war between
Russia and Ukraine,
you have no influence of it. There's nothing you can do about it but to allow it. I'm not in this way saying that we have not also committed any mistakes. Right. We must really accept that we have also committed some mistakes. But these events deepened whatever problems we had, and governments also in their second terms always have difficulty in overcome all over the world, right. Because you take some decisions where people may think not popular, but we are looking to the future, and therefore you may take some decisions, and this may affect you at the polls.
Right.
So we are in a very difficult situation. There's no doubt about that. But our behavior between now and
the next 2 years,
will determine if Ghanaians believe that yes, we are in difficulties, but we have a program to get us of the difficulties and build on it.
For instance, you have been proposing some of the issues that could turn around the economy. Part of the very strong views that you hold is the fact that if you were, for instance, the finance minister, you would have resigned. The finance minister has responded. He believes he has changed his mind and has agreed with the president to turn to the IMF, for instance. Giving his response that it's like a father leaving his children, and the analysis we're hearing from the vice president, do you feel that he should be giving some more days to stay in that office?
You quoted me right. I said,
right.
If I were him,
right.
If I were him,
right.
I would resign.
You still hold that view?
I still hold that view.
Even in the face of the explanation he's giving?
Well, you can always give an explanation. Right. Why not? And I'm not doubting his explanation. Right. But I'm saying if I were in his position, because I find it untenable to go and sit with the IMF, because I've stated it so many times that that is not the way to go. So what new thing am I going to tell them? Go and say them, assuming they were to ask me. They don't do right. that. Assuming they were to ask me, oh, why are you now coming to talk to us? Something? Oh, I've changed my mind. Well, I can say that, but what would they think about me?
You feel his presence may affect the negotiations?
I don't know.
Right, but you comparing what happened, for instance, during the Kufuor era, when you turned to HIPIC, and looking at that decision to go to the IMF, for instance, do you feel that the conditions are the same, and that looking at that experience?
When Kufuor came, we were broke. The country was totally broke. The records are there. Even within government, within his government, there were those of them who said, no, we're a proud nation, so we shouldn't go to declare ourselves HIPIC. He listened to everybody, but it's a responsibility. And the books were read to him. He looked at it and told them, look, I'm going to HIPIC. If there's any of you who believe that that's a wrong decision, you have the liberty to resign. And we went to HIPIC, and the outcome we all know. Because we were just broke. We were just broke at that time.
But the circumstances are not the same for President Akufo-Addo.
I don't think
Some say it's because of how he's run the country, not doing that in the right direction.
Well, that's some people's belief. Of course, whenever you have difficulties, people assign so many reasons to your difficulties. So that's what some people assign it to.
And we'll be wrapping up shortly, but for instance, we've heard from the likes of former President John Dramani Mahama, who've also waded into the performance of the economy. He believes that the Vice President should also be taking on for that, not just the Finance Minister, but the entire economic management team.
You see, unfortunately, this political system we have,
right,
the Vice President is there. Can only remove him by him resigning or vote of no impeachment,
right,
or an election, And Vice President is not the final authority. Number one is the President. Well, the Vice President may resign and say, I don't believe in any IMF, and because of that, I'm resigning. And they have every right to do that. But he's not directly in charge of the economy.
Some say he's made a lot of promises, a reason for which,
well, unfortunately,
yes.
Unfortunately, yes. These days I listen in the morning to some of your stations and whatnot, and they always start by referring to some of the old speeches made by the Vice President and whatnot, and then follow it up with discussions on some of those issues. It's unfortunate, yes. Unfortunately, he did that. Maybe if hindsight would say that maybe if I have another opportunity, I shouldn't behave that way.
Should he apologize to Ghana?
Well, I don't know. It'd be fine if he said, by human beings, we are difficult. But it wouldn't be out of place if he said, well, I was wrong. But it's always difficult, especially for the politician, to come around to say he was wrong.
Right.
Very, very difficult. But it would be a very good to come and say that, yes, I look at these things, some of them, now looking at issues and being involved with reality, maybe some of them.
We'll be wrapping up shortly by taking your words to Ghanaians, but I'm asking a controversial one here. We've heard of the factionalism within the NPP, and some say that if indeed you want to better your chances, this is the time to consider a reunion between the Alan and Bawumia faction. What's your take on having a pair, the vice president, for instance, and Alan Kojo Tremantin run for the 2024
I think
elections?
you are asking me a question which I answered some time ago. I don't believe in that. I believe you must always give the candidate the opportunity to choose and present to the party and give reasons why he's decided to choose that person. Forcing people who may not even be compatible together may not be in the best interest of the party and the nation. So let the people decide who they want to be the candidate. Let the candidate look through the party and say, I believe this is the right person. Explain to the party why he believes that person is the right person. And then the two of them can then work together. That's my belief. People are saying that we should have what we are suggesting. Right. Because the reason for them doing that there's so much tension in the party that will bring people together. In political parties, you can't run away from tensions, especially when it's getting to election. It's part of political process, you know. And your ability to handle that shows
how democratic,
you are
as a political party.
Excuse me.
So you believe that it doesn't matter if you have the two, contesting each other?
Excuse me.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong about that.
Right.
Excuse me. I sincerely believe there's nothing wrong.
Okay. We need to wrap up. Your message to Ghanaians as we wrap up. But obviously, the NPP is also seeking to break the 8. The president believes it's something that will definitely happen. So perhaps if you're convinced by that vision, probably you may want to share.
Yes, I'm convinced by that, but excuse me.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Right.
But we must work towards that.
Right.
You say it, fine. But to convince Ghanaians that what we're saying is the right thing, excuse me, you must work towards that. If you don't work towards that, say it. It wouldn't mean anything.
No.
So
and you can catch excerpts of the program later online. You're still with us here on the Pulse on the JoyNews channel. We'll return to talk about former President John Dramani Mahama, who's taking on the governing New Patriotic Party. It's all coming up shortly. Please stay. And you're welcome back. Former President John Dramani Mahama says the governing New Patriotic Party has exhibited traits that it cannot resolve Ghana's economic crisis. He outlined reckless election-related expenditure, mismanagement, ineptitude and lack of proper leadership as the cause of the economic downfall, which has compelled the government to reach out to the International Monetary Fund. John Mahama was speaking at the closing ceremony of a retreat for the Minority Caucus in Parliament at the Volta Serene Hotel in Ho.
It's also the reason why we've insisted on effective scrutiny of the economic and financial decisions of this government at this time, especially in Parliament. We do not believe that the existence of crisis permits even more reckless decision-making. All decisions and policy choices made at this critical juncture could offer relief or could exacerbate our problems and make recovery extremely difficult.
Well, so let's speak to Ho West Member of Parliament, Emmanuel Kwesi-Betra, who's joining us via Zoom. Thank you, sir, for your time. So here we are. The former president has, in fact, raised more concerns, talked about the Ghana card as well. We'll turn to that shortly. But first of all, he's been taking on the New Patriotic Party over economic mismanagement. Some say that you're setting double standards, first of all, particularly as we know the track record of the NDC. You turned to the IMF as well, way back in, I guess, 2014. So why then is it the case that we have the same president accusing his counterpart of not doing much?
Thank you very much, my brother, and good evening to your cherished viewers and listeners. Ghana, yes, indeed, we went to IMF in 2014. But if you look at what we sent to IMF, it was a homegrown policy that we developed with stakeholders all over the country. We did not just, went to IMF in an ambulance. We went to IMF knowing very well that we have, what we're supposed to do, what we wanted to achieve, and that at the end of the 2017 would have been out of IMF. And so we went with a decision that, yes, the economy was not doing well at that time due to some external circumstances, which we all know, and therefore we needed a bailout. And in fact, we went and we came out, Ghana came out of the bailout, successfully. And so for the former president to, inform us at the closing ceremony that this current government, in fact, we've been advising, he's been advising them long ago to go into IMF, but just that they refused to go. They said they were not going to go. But how it happened? They changed their mind and went to IMF. It shows the double standard of leaders that we have currently. And so
but you agree that the context within which the NPP is heading to the IMF is completely different from the reasons why you turned to the IMF. And it's quite clear that it's mostly about the external forces, as the Vice President is pointing to. You disagree?
I disagree, entirely disagree. Whether you went to IMF with a headache, or you went to IMF with your having a leg pains, or you went to IMF with your stomach pains, it's all boiled down to the fact that you went to IMF. I mean, if you're not doing very well, whether you have external factors or internal factors and went to IMF, you have gone to IMF for bailout. And so we should admit, I mean, I don't see why we'll be running away from the fact that we've gone to IMF. We've gone to IMF, and so what? Are we the first country to go to IMF? Is it the first time we've gone to IMF? And so, my brother, let us not shift the goalposts that, yes, ours was internally generated and this was external factor, and therefore we have different scenarios. That's why we went to IMF. All of us have gone to IMF, whether it's an external factor or internal factor. He has gone to IMF.
And we've just seen this consistency on the part of John Dramani Mahama attacking, I'm using that word advisedly, attacking the economic management team. He seems to be keen on having some persons within government resign. Why?
Well, it's the same. You remember when the current vice president was introducing the economic management team during one of their programs. I mean, you've been airing it all the time. One of the things he said that these are the competent men that we have who will help the economy to grow. And so if you have competent men that will help the country to grow, and these same competent men are helping the country to, go in the reverse direction, why won't he ask, where are those competent men? Why won't he, tease them that where are those competent men? In fact, let us admit that this current government has recklessly misused our resources to the extent that they have borrowed, to the tune that is way above our economic support. And therefore, for me, I do not see anything wrong when the former president taunts them or tease them that they are economic messiah, especially the vice president who the whole country, including and some of our colleagues think that he was economic messiah that will bring economic development to this country. Today, he's running away from his economic theories. We all know now he's rather doing digitalization than economic theories that he has propounded.
Let's touch on some more issues in terms of the fallout from that retreat you held in the Volta region. The former president has also been touching on the concerns about the Ghana card. He believes that that's becoming a political tool for government. I just want you to listen briefly. You were there, actually, but for the sake of my viewers, I just want you to listen once more to what the former president said, and I'll take your thoughts on his comments on the Ghana card.
Ghana card is a relatively new feature national life and has its merits in the scheme of things. At the moment, it's being brandished more as a political tool around which all manner of schemes are being fashioned towards elections. There is a need to allow sufficient time for its full integration into our way of life before this kind of unhelpful exclusion of all other legitimately acquired, credible, and time-tested forms of identification of who is implemented. The National Identification Authority cannot claim to have covered every Ghanaian who should be registered or distributed all the cards printed to those who have been captured in their system. They have failed to distribute hundreds of thousands of cards to people who have registered. The full and total is achieved in the road out of the Ghana card. Room must be provided for those who have yet to be served to exercise their democratic rights of voting. They cannot be excluded from the voter register due to no fault of theirs. This should be clear, quite clear, and easy to appreciate. The haste on the part of the Electoral Commission to exclude all other means of identification is therefore clearly indecent and informed by ulterior objectives. Last week, you in the minority raised red flags over suspected attempts to compile a new register on the sole basis of the Ghana card. The Electoral Commission was denied that it harbors any such intentions. Until the advent of the current leadership of the Commission, this denial would have ended the matter. Unfortunately, this Commission in its present form is known to have walked back on similar commitments in the recent past. And so we in NDC will maintain eternal vigilance to ensure that no such thing happens. The process of continuation as canvassed by the Electoral Commission must necessarily include a system that enables all political parties and relevant stakeholders to possess the capacity to monitor same in real time to avoid fraud and exploitation to the undue advantage of any party. We in the NDC will continue to insist on this.
So, back to you, Honorable Member. You heard him talk about, quote, an ulterior motive. That's, how former President John Dramani Mahama is describing the Electoral Commission. It appears that the NDC has not waned on its continuous attack on the Electoral Commission.
Well, if you have a referee who always do things without consulting, that's what happens. We all know that we just finished an election last 2 years, 2020. And before then, Parliament has approved an amount of 80 million Ghana cedis for the electoral management process. That includes the new voter register. And you quite remember that during the 2020 election, there was COVID in the country, but the Electoral Commission has done its, made it possible for us to register our names in the new register. And you also remember that during the registration period, an issue of who a Ghanaian is also featured, including the fact that our birth certificates were taken off, only passports and some identities were allowed to be used as a voter support.
Yeah,
for the
but this is the Ghana card we're talking about, the national identification card. What's ulterior about the NIA card, particularly when the EC is not the one even issuing the cards? It's as though this would even help the cause of the NDC, isn't it? Because this is not a body that would issue the cards for you to even raise concerns about. I guess every citizen would want to go in for the Ghana card, right?
So currently we have a constitutional instrument, a draft constitutional instrument that has come to the House, to our members on the subsidiary legislation committee to look at before they present the CI, which our colleagues from the other side are doing everything possible to bring it to the House before we rise. So we sound alarm that if you want to go in for a new voter's ID card or even a continuous voter's ID card, we already have a CI that regulates registration. You do not bring in a new CI that will limit registration to only Ghana card. In fact, that is our concern. If you don't have any ulterior motive, why don't you continue with the continual registration with the same CI that allows passport and other identification to register? Why do you have to bring in only the new Ghana card, which the former president has raised concern that the new Ghana card that we all know is fairly new in the system? And majority of Ghanaians do not own the Ghana card. We do not have, most people do not have it.
If you look at the components of the Ghana card, that contains, for instance, the passport, and then you have the other IDs in it, including the EC's own card. So it's more comprehensive, isn't it?
So we ask ourselves, how many people own the Ghana card? Does it mean that those who have turned 18 now, or those who have returned from outside who do not have the Ghana card? And we know the problem we are facing with the Ghana card. Can we assure Ghanaians that everybody in this country will be able to, have the Ghana card before the new registration or the continual registration will take place? You remember we had a closed session with the National Identification Authority recently, and you'll be surprised that indeed we have close to about 60 million voters, but they have registered only 15 million. And you want to register new people who have not yet been captured on your voters registration register. And so what is the guarantee that 15 and a 16 that you have, you'll be able to capture the difference of 1 million and also register the new people who you want to seek to be on the register? These are the questions that all of us must answer, and Ghanaians must begin to rise up and see reason why there's no need for any new identification card. Because if you want, and if you even look at the CI that they brought, one of the clauses says that they will determine where they will do the registration. It is not every police station that will be, or every polling registration center that will be registering.
All right.
The Electoral Commission will determine where the registration will be done, and it begs the question as to whether they have intention to cover the whole country or not.
Anyway, but I'm grateful, Honorable Emmanuel Kwesi-Bajor, for joining us this afternoon on The Pulse. And that's all we have for you in this package. My name is Blessed Sogah. Log on to myjoyonline.com. We have more stories for you there.